Shush! It's time for The Shelf. Whangarei District Libraries Radio on Beagle Radio. Oh!
Tēnā koutou katoa no mai whakarongo mai ki The Shelf. He punua pao mai I ngā whare pukapuka I Whangarei I Beagle Radio 88.1 FM. E pāhuri koutou I ngā hōtaka me o hautu ki ngā whare pukapuka I YouTube.
Hello everyone and welcome to The Shelf, a podcast for Whangarei District Libraries on Beagle Radio 88.1 FM, and we're streaming online at beagleradio.co.nz. And kia ora everyone, my name is Karlie, I'm an acquisitions librarian at Whangarei Central Library, and I'm joined here by...
Kia ora, I'm Melani, I'm the Teen Services Librarian at Whangarei District Libraries.
Woohoo! And maybe could you tell me a little bit about what being a teen service librarian entails?
So part of the teen services is obviously looking after the teens collection, so your young adult novels and comics, graphic novels, all the collections, physical stuff like that, but also looking after the space. And I think on a past episode we talked about how I kind of changed things up in the central library, the teens area.
It's looking so cool and the kids love it.
Yeah, I know, it's always really, really popular. Somebody with on the bean bags everywhere and sitting, and then also playing chess and at the desks there. So that's quite cool. I'm quite proud of that.
Yeah, it's real cool.
Yeah, and then also any programs or tours, school groups and tours that come in, and school holiday programs that I do.
We might speak a little bit more about the upcoming school holiday programs, which are happening starting in less than 2 weeks' time, I believe.
Yeah, just after Easter weekend. Yeah,
so that's something to look forward to.
Yeah, and how about you, Karlie? What is an acquisitions librarian?
Well, I'm still learning. But it's... So collections librarians such as Melani purchase the books, and then once they arrive at the library, that's when I handle them and process them, put them in the system.
Very important. We like Karlie too.
And I do a little bit of cataloguing as well with the tech team. So it's basically once the books arrive, that's when I me and Swazik help out there and do our part.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. Yeah.
All right.
And speaking about books incoming, how about what have we been reading? What have you been reading, Karlie?
Well, I have been reading, aside from my usual, romance books.
No shame here. Everybody loves you love what you love.
Oh, totally. I've been trying my hand. I'm not the greatest reader at nonfiction. Sorry, LJ. So I've been trying to read through an audiobook some nonfiction. So one of the ones I've been having a go at is called What We Owe the Future by William MacAskill. And I do know that we have this in hard copy at the library because I also have that one checked out at the moment. So I'm trying to read in tandem.
You can put this book on hold if this sounds like the kind of book that you'd like to read as well.
Yes, definitely. So this book is about, it puts humankind into perspective. So it's very aware, the author's very aware that we have climate change and certain scientific and possible catastrophes on the way.
On the horizon.
But this is a more optimistic view of it puts us in a time scale. For instance, if we don't let these things, be a huge threat, overwhelm us, we're actually in the scale of things, one day we'll be the ancient people on the earth, where humankind is quite young in comparison to how long we could live.
Everything.
So it's really quite cool.
Does it have more of a hopeful tone?
Yeah, it's definitely more of a hopeful tone. It's definitely more about adopting this worldview of caring for the generations that follow us. Because he says we're living at the start of what we hope is a really long history of humans on Earth, and maybe he goes on to say maybe space, who knows? But it's it introduced me to the term long-termism, which is a worldview that we should be we influence the long-term future, and that being like a moral priority for us.
Yeah.
So our threats could be climate change, AI, controlling AI, or biowarfare, he says. But the author presents like a hopeful argument that through things like activism, how we vote, decisions we make, personally or at work, we can make a difference. And as humans, we should think about who's coming next.
Yeah.
And who's coming in 100 years or however many years' time. So we want to make sure that they have a good life. So I just think that's such a cool outlook.
Yeah.
Because it's not like overwhelmingly sad or scary. He's like, we could take care of.
Yeah, it sounds like it does a good
Yeah.
balance of like, yes, these are the problems that we're facing now or what we could face later on, but also like saying we're not totally doomed.
No.
Here's the cool things already happening or could happen as long as we,
Yeah.
think of the generations after.
Totally. And we should just adopt that as our perspective on things like how the decisions we make on a day-to-day basis,
Work
how can
towards
they
that.
affect
Yeah.
our communities and future communities, things like that. It's
Yeah.
just real cool. I like that.
That's
vibe.
pretty cool. Yeah. So what was that called again?
That was called What We Owe the Future by William MacAskill.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of the future, I've been reading sci-fi novella, actually called The Murderbot Diaries, is the series by Martha Wells, and it starts with the novella Systems Red, and so yes, this is a futuristic society. We've made it to space. We've managed to take care of the generations after us, and we got to space. And there, of course, we face the similar problems as we always do. But that's not the point of this series. This is the perspective of a AI security bot, which calls itself Murderbot because it has actually become self-aware and self-governing, is its own system. And so it starts off on a distant planet with a team of scientists conducting surface tests, but then it's suddenly attacked, and so then this SEC unit, as it's called, has to save its clients. And in telling the story, you realize, and it tells you that it's hacked its own governing system and it's self-aware, and so it likes to refer to itself as Murderbot. And really what it wants to do most in its existence is just to have the time to go somewhere else and just watch its own soap operas, like,
oh my gosh.
So you know how you want to just doom scroll all the time or just watch your favorite TV show and just relax. That's what it would like most in the world. Okay,
Oh my
it calls itself
gosh.
Murderbot, but no, just wants to chill.
Just wants to kill some time.
Yeah, exactly. You got it. And I will say, like, it's the most, I don't know, not exactly. I think people have described it as the most human, non-human that they've read in, like, as a character. But yeah, it's just quite fun, and I will say that I absolutely read the first and second books in one night, and have put the rest on hold. And I'm gonna read the rest because it's just great. I think it came out as a TV series as well last year or the year before. Haven't seen that yet, but yeah. So people be peopling even when they're not people in the future. So
You've just unlocked a memory. I don't know why this popped into my head. Did you ever watch the Robin Williams movie, The Bicentennial Man?
Yes,
I watched it as a child. It's traumatized me. And it just bubbled to the surface there. But I remember he was a robot man, and then he turned into a real man. And at the end, like, he dies as a human with the love of his life, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But, wow.
Yeah, the whole sort of questions about, like, if you're a construct but have self-awareness, are you human? Do you say that, or are you just a self-aware? Or is it...
It's funny, we've been talking about this for many years now. That's probably like 30 years old, that movie.
Yeah.
But for a long time.
So, Yeah,
Wow.
so both interesting.
Pretty
things to
cool.
be reading.
So if you like the sound of any of those books, they're all at our library.
Absolutely, check
yeah.
out on our catalogue or come and ask a friendly librarian, and I may let you read the check
Yeah.
out those
Once she's
Murderbot.
done with it.
Once
though.
I'm done with them, yeah.
Oh, cool. So recently we had, I guess we'd still call it a heritage talk, but it was a Q&A that our heritage librarian, Monique, organised with author Lauren Roche, which was an amazing, get for the library.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. So she has recently written a book called Julia Icard, if I'm pronouncing that right, about like a New Zealand pioneer woman. And we shall play the first section of this interview with you guys. Part 2 might be coming in a few weeks' time, or we might release it all together on our YouTube channel. But for now, we'll play you part 1, and I'll just get it set up here for you.
It's my great pleasure to introduce Lauren Roche. She is an author as well and a former GP and an exceptional woman in her own right. So an exceptional woman writing about an exceptional woman. She has written 2 memoirs, Bent Not Broken and Life on the Line, both of which are in our library. And she's written a fictional novel, Miller and the Boneman, and her latest novel, which is a fictionalised version of one of New Zealand's pioneer businesswoman, Julia Icard, A Life of Grit and Grace, and that is what brings her here today. So welcome, thanks for coming.
Thank you. I promised someone who's here today that I'd speak really quickly because she has to get away to something else. No, she's changed her mind. I don't have to speak quickly. But I do have a tendency to do that, so if I'm gabbling, just put your hand up. So I'm Lauren. Thank you for the invitation and thanks for coming out on this pretty dreary day.
So I was wondering if we could start with really just talking a little bit about Julia and how you came to write about her.
Yeah. I've written the books that you've talked about, Miller and the Bone Man and the 2 memoirs, and I had another couple of manuscripts that I'd done, one as my AUT creative writing thesis about death, and another one about the writing of Gray's Anatomy in the 1860s in London. And I couldn't find a publisher for these books, and I was speaking to a man who distributes books, and he said, look, I hope this isn't offensive to you, but would you write a book for someone else? Would you write a book on commission? And I said, of course I would. And he said, have you ever heard of Julia Icard? And I said yes, although I never had heard of her. And I said I'd be very happy to write her story. Now the story of Julia came about when the publisher of a small business down in Queenstown, his name's Sam Parder Cooper, was talking to his niece, and his niece is at high school at Lake Wakatipu in Queenstown. And the girl said, I can't believe they've divided us up into all these teams in school, and the teams are all named after Queenstown men. And it's a girls' school. They were named after William Rees and von Tunzelman and male explorers and pioneers in Queenstown. And she said, why aren't we under women's names? And he said, well, tell me some prominent Queenstown women. And she couldn't. Because the history of the women in Queenstown is nowhere near as well documented. There aren't statues to the women who helped to build Queenstown. There's one of William Rees. So the women were effectively written out, or not written into the history. Sam had already published a book called Kitty Kay about a woman who was a packer in Queenstown. So he wanted to continue to write stories about prominent women. So that's where Julia came in. I said, yes, I'll do it. They said, send us some historical fiction. So I sent them part of the Anatomist's Handbook. They really enjoyed it. And I learned in 8 months as much about Julia Eichhardt as I think anyone's ever known before. So that's how it came about. It was a commissioned book brought about because someone had noticed that people weren't telling the stories of the women of Queenstown.
So can we talk a little bit about what it was like for women in business, and what are some of the structures and the things that they came up against when they were trying to make a living?
First of all, to get to places like Queenstown, most of the women who came as pioneers had to spend months and months on board ship. Julia's mother came from Ireland to Victoria in Australia on a 4-month trip, and she gave birth 2 weeks into the voyage. So the women who came here had already been through a lot of deprivation, privation. A lot of them from Ireland had lost their land. They were affected by famine well before the potato famine. People were coming to find something new, and they thought that they were coming to a country where they could build a new life for themselves and their kids, and where they could be useful and helpful. Most of them arrived into Dunedin in the early days, and Dunedin then was called Mud Eden. There was sewage in the streets. It was full of mud. The women wore crinolines and long, long dresses and little boots, and they were constantly begrimed. You know, they started making little shields for the bottoms of their dresses so they could walk in the mud. To get anywhere from your house, you had to build the house yourself, and it was usually a little whare that was built from bits of flax and fern. That was the initial buildings. And while, you know, you could appreciate the light coming through the gaps in the summer, summer's not a long time in Dunedin. As soon as it started to rain and the snow came, those beautiful little whare weren't nearly as nice. You had to walk for miles and miles to see a neighbour. You had to look after your own animals. You had to milk cows. You had to prepare beasts. You had to cook everything on a little coal range if you had one. Otherwise it was in a pot on a fire. And you had children. About every 2 years you'd pop out another baby. And most of those children, no, not most of them, up to half of those children were expected to die from childhood diseases. It was really hard. Women then also, if you were a young single woman, you had to look after your virtue. It was the most valuable thing you had. You couldn't go on a date unchaperoned. You had to go to balls, and there was always someone watching and chatting. The women who came out to start, many came and became hoteliers, had to again be these paragons of virtue, you know. Julia Eichhardt had to once kick a young man out of her hotel because she'd found a young woman in his room. The young man went on to commit suicide and blamed Julia for his suicide because, yeah. So that was Julia protecting her hotel and its reputation. Also, women who were unmarried had no power over their own money if they were working. Working young women had to give money to their parents. When you married, your husband took your money. Your property belonged to him. So until about 1888, I think, when the Women's Property Act came in and women were allowed to own stuff. So the powerful women back then were the widows, because widows had built something. They owned something, and the something that they owned actually belonged to them. And it surprised me going back through all the newspapers and things that there were very few black widows. You would think that there would be an incentive to knock your husband off so you could keep your hands on your own things. But there were very few of them. Well, that were found out.
Yeah, they're just better at it.
Yeah. So, yeah, there was social isolation. Women came from overseas. They didn't have a family structure here. When you were busy having your babies, you often didn't have your mum or your auntie or your older sister beside you. So a lot of knowledge was lost or was hard to come by. The plants that grew over here were different. The birds were different. The trees were different. You'd the old remedies that had worked back home, they didn't work here. You had to be able to talk to the people who knew. And yet a lot of the Europeans and Māori didn't communicate well together. Not at the beginning. It was better in the South Island than it was further north, but yeah, there was a lot of knowledge that that they hadn't yet caught up with. There were no schools at the beginning. In Dunedin, in about 1867, they were talking about putting a university. University of Otago opened in 1871. But in the late 1860s, somebody started night classes for people where you could come along and learn about electricity, which was a very new thing, engineering. You could learn about science and botany. The very first night, it was in winter, 250 people turned up. So while there were no schools yet, education was really important. But women were kept out of a lot of education at the beginning. It wasn't thought womanly to be able to work as a doctor. You couldn't be a scientist. Women were kept very much in the housekeeping, nursing and midwifery. The midwives were known as howdies, because when the midwife turned up at your house, they'd say, "How do you doing today, Mrs.?" So you could be a howdy, you could be a nurse, you could take in other women's washing or care for their children. And when the schools started, you could teach. But you couldn't do a lot of the more exciting and interesting things.
So you mentioned about widows being, one of the women who had the power because they had the finance. Did women have access to capital if they wanted to start a business?
It was really hard to borrow money if you were a woman without your husband's permission or your father's permission. Some women came over with money. There was a woman called Anne Evans, I can't recall her maiden name, who came over. She'd been working with Florence Nightingale in Crimea, and she came to New Zealand with a pot of money to set up a hospital. There wasn't enough money, and she ended up being William Reese's child's nanny for a while. So women either brought money with them or had to borrow with the permission of the men in the household. Women with money, with families with money, could do so many more interesting things. A lot of women at that time who had wealthy families went to school overseas. There was a rabbi in Melbourne who taught young Jewish women about their faith. So people like Bendix Hellenstein, who was one of the early pioneer men, he sent all of his daughters across to Melbourne to learn about Judaism. He also sent them to Europe. They were expected, young moneyed women in the pioneer days, to be able to read French and Italian and German as well as English. They were expected to be able to play the piano and sing and be charming and delightful.
There is, I think, in addition, there was a point I found out recently that this famous Smith & Co.'s department store was started by Marion Smith, who was also an Irish immigrant. And progressively over time they wrote her out of that story because it just didn't fit the profile that they wanted. So there was a time when we did know more about the women who participated in the growth of New Zealand, and it's only now that through the work of such people like Lauren and other institutions that those stories are getting written back into history, so that we can start to recognise and know these women and have their names coming off the tip of our tongues like they do for the men pioneers that we know. I did want to ask you, there was, so I think at one time you mentioned in the book that the 4 major hotels are run by women in Queenstown, but there was also something to do with liquor licences as well. That there's kind of created a threat to that. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah. At one point in Queenstown, the 4 major hotels were run by widows. So Eichardt's was run by Julia Eichhardt. Her mother, Jane O'Meara, ran the Supreme Court. Rebecca Bond, who's the subject of my next book, ran the Empire Hotel, which is now called the Cardrona Hotel. When she was widowed, she went and ran the Mountaineer, which is in Queenstown. And there's another Jane McBride who ran the Harp of Erin. So there's 4 women, 4 widows controlled the 4 main hotels in Queenstown. And that caused a bit of a stink because Jane McBride got the licence over a man who thought he should get it because men should be represented at the higher levels in hotel keeping. But she still got it. Liquor licences could be held by virtuous women, not by single women, virtuous married women, but also by widows. So one of the great things about being a hotelier is if you had children, you brought your children up alongside you. You taught your children how to run the hotel business. You didn't have to have a lot of money to start a hotel. On the goldfields, you'd need a bit of canvas, a bit of wood for a bar and a few bottles, and some glass cleaning rags. So it didn't take money. And when your husband died, the business and the liquor license went to you, so long as you remained virtuous. And then when the temperance movement came out, they tried to stop women running hotels, especially if they had attractive barmaids. Because the thought was that these attractive women were taking men out of their homes and feeding them alcohol and bad ideas. So for a while there was a real push. It started, I think, in Australia and then came here to just not have barmaids anymore. One of the problems in the goldfield with the barmaids is they would come from overseas, they'd get fully trained up by the owner of the bar, and then some miner would come along and take them away. And women would last about 2 weeks working in the bars before someone took them away. So one manager decided that he would get the ugliest barmaid anyone had ever seen. And so he auditioned a number of women and he chose the ugliest one. And she lasted 3 days before she left with a miner. There's a wonderful book called Wanted, A Beautiful Barmaid, and it goes through the history of barkeeping and hotel keeping in New Zealand. It's a really good book.
Okay. I hope this is not a spoiler alert, but Julia's husband does die, and just in case it's a trigger, and she goes to wearing black.
She does.
Which that was something I wasn't really aware about, and I was wondering, can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, it was important to wear mourning. You wore black, only black, for 1 year, unless you were Queen Victoria and you wore it for the rest of your life. And then you could begin to put little cuffs on after a year, little slightly coloured things, not bright. You had to wear mourning. It was what you did, and it was what she did. And we've got some pictures of her looking particularly grim, really, wearing some dark clothes. I think we've got, there's Julia. Now she would have been then in about her mid-40s. It's when she was married to Albert. And there's a photograph of her mother sitting in that same chair. I haven't brought it today. And one of her little sister, who would have been 11 or 12, all taken with that same really rigid posture and quite grim look. So that's Dear Julia. And the next picture, I think, it's the next one. Oh, that's what Queenstown was like when Julia arrived in 1862. And you can see all of the pubs along there. On the far right, is Eichhardt's Hotel. At that stage it was called the Queen's Arms Tavern. And it was the first hotel in Queenstown, and it was made out of the woolshed of William Rees. So he had the license to run sheep on that land. What happened when these guys first arrived in New Zealand? They wanted to be landowners. They wanted to be lords of all they surveyed. He and von Tunzelman stood at the top of the Crown Range and looked down and saw Queenstown and imagined it as this place with sheep everywhere and a lovely little homestead and a beautiful place to raise a family just on the edge of that lake. So he put up a shearing shed. He had to stock the whole place within a year or he would lose the license. He picked up sheep in Bluff, and these sheep were driven overland to Queenstown. They had to swim rivers. They had to do amazing things to get these sheep to stock the land to hold the license. And in those days, any land that Māori weren't actively living on with big buildings and palisades and things was called wasteland. And it didn't matter that this land was where they travelled and they're seasonal looking for food. It didn't matter that this was ancestral land. It was called wasteland. And if you could put fences on it and put stock on it within a year of getting the licence, it was effectively yours. So that's what William Rees did. And he got to his first shearing in this beautiful shearing shed, and someone found gold up the road. And because they found gold up the road, Queenstown was declared a gold field. And so he lost his licence. He lost this beautiful place that he'd planned to live in for the rest of his life. And all these hotels went up. Initially they were all canvas, with a bit of corrugated iron sometimes. But these are starting to get a little bit more established. But there were more bars than anything else, because it was the path to the goldfield. And the people who made money on the goldfield weren't the miners particularly. The very early miners sometimes made a lot of money, but the ones that came after never did. But the people who sold them their provisions made money. The people who gave them their alcohol. The sex workers who followed them. The dancers. The packers. They were the people who made money. Oopsie. One of these hotels is owned by the guy who first struck gold at Arthur's Point, which is just up the road from Queenstown. I can't see which one it is now. But that was what Queenstown looked like when Julia arrived. So there was already a little wooden building that was a repurposed sheep shearing shed that she and Albert later reimagined in stone and rebuilt over several stages. What's our next picture? That was the big flood of 1867, I think. One thing that people weren't used to was that when the really big snows came, and there were terrible snows for about 3 years in a row, then the balmy spring weather would come, and you'd think, oh, it's spring, how lovely. But all that snow melted, and it went zooming down the canyons and the gullies, washed out all the miners' encampments, and rose to about 6 feet inside Eichhardt's hotel. At one point, I think one of the rivers running into Wakatipu was 40 feet higher than normal. So everyone was flooded out. And the next picture is another one that I think shows Eichhardt's. So there's Eichhardt's hotel on the corner. There's Albert Eichhardt standing up the top. And the flood has come all the way up that street, Balance Street, I think, and Rees Street is off to that side. So within a few years of doing their big hotel, making this wonderful place, it was flooded and was thought initially to be irredeemably flooded and damaged, but they managed to fix it.
You're listening to The Shelf, a radio show for Whangarei District Libraries on Beagle Radio 88.1 FM. That song was Wish You Well by Bernard Fanning. And before that, we listened to part 1 of the Q&A talk, Heritage Talk, with author Lauren Roche. So stay tuned for a part 2 in another episode.
Yeah, and always keep an eye on our websites and social media for upcoming Heritage Talks and possibly author talks as well.
Yeah, all sorts happening at the library.
Always. All right, so now we're going to talk a little bit about our branch libraries. If you didn't know, in addition to our awesome Whangarei Central Library in town, we also have 3 other libraries plus the mobile bus actually around Whangarei. Maybe I'll just do a little bit of an intro for each of them and then we can get into some cool stuff about them.
Fun facts.
Carmo Library is the oldest of our little suburb libraries. That was built in 1938.
1938.
It's located on 583 Carmo Road, right in between the op shop and the fish and chip shop.
Yep.
Can't miss it.
Good fish burgers at the fish and chip shop.
Oh,
by
yeah.
the way.
We can attest. Every librarian that's worked there can attest to that. So it was built in an Art Deco style, as was the times. Half of it was a library and half was used as the Carmo Town Board office in the early days, which now we think, oh, how did they have space in there?
Yeah.
But it was still a young township around that time. I did find on Papers Past a cool clipping about people in 1938 getting a sneak peek into the library before it was opened. So this is from 1st of September 1938, and Papers Past is available to everyone online. It's a free database. This one's called Addition to Carmo's Buildings. Citizens of Carmo and Whangarei had their first opportunity last night to inspect the new town board offices and library. Powerfully floodlit, the buildings presented a most attractive appearance, its picturesque frontage dominated by 2 globe electric lamps surmounting iron standards, looking particularly well in the blue light. The inside of the building was in keeping with the outside, being well lighted.
There's a lot of
important.
lighting here.
And painted in a most agreeable colour scheme.
Agreeable.
Visitors expressed themselves well pleased with the building, which is undoubtedly one of the finest of its kind in the north.
One of the finest in its kind. Everybody should go check out the Carmo Library. One of the finest of its kind in the north. Oh, that's cool.
So that's funny. That's like where we came from now. That was the one of the finer buildings of the time, and now we've got this big flash library in town.
In town, and we see every day the old library in front of the new library, which is it's turning 20. This year, possibly. But I remember working in the Carmo Library, or Te Carmo Library, and seeing the stained glass window at the front entrance. So next time you're there, check that out. It's got 1937 on it, I believe.
Yeah.
That was the opening. Yeah, and it's funny because you're reading out this Papers Past article. Also made me think of when you were very excited to go see a sneak peek of the Wellington Library. So things have changed but also stayed the same.
Totally. That is so true. Same feelings, different locations. Settings. We've also got Onarahi Library, which was opened in 14th of November 1973. That's a very specific date I was able to find online. In August 2007, the annex was added, which is like a second building next door to the library for staff purposes, and we've currently got our stack in there. We've got some books in there. So that was moved from another location. The council weren't using it, so we're able to grab that for us, which is very needed. So that library is on 159 Onarahi Road, opposite the shops, like sort of overlooking the shops from the other side. And then last but not least, we've got Tikipunga Library. This one opened in either 1983 or 1984. I've got to sort of hunt down the actual date. I know that it turned 25 years in 2008. So, you do the maths, Melani. Just kidding. So those are our 3 libraries, and they've been here, each been here quite a long time to come.
Serving the community out in those areas. So I believe you can check out the library times that they're open on our website, or you can call the library phone number and we can tell you when they are open. I've had a chance to work at all 3 of those branch libraries. And I believe you also had a stint as working the branch libraries.
Oh yeah, I
before.
used to be out there all the time.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's real cool. It's fun for librarians at those libraries because you get to know the people that come in there every week or so. Or
Yeah,
every couple of weeks.
And I feel like different branches have like a different focus on, like, some may like more romance books, some do more like sci-fi or fantasy. But yeah, I've actually done a dive and taken a look into what the top 5 authors were, or I can do top 3 authors from those branches are. So starting with Te Kamo. First top author is James Patterson.
Oh, shocking.
Yeah, pretty popular. And then we've got David Baldacci and Nora Roberts, Lee Child, and Danielle Steele.
Oh, that pretty much tracks. I wonder if that's quite similar to Central Library.
Yeah,
actually.
It sounds pretty much like Central Library to me. And then if we go to Tikipunga, we've got James Patterson, and we've got Nora Roberts.
Oh, pushing up to second place.
Second place. And then we've got Anna Jacobs, who's pushed down Lee Child. Oh no, he's still in 4th place, same as Carmel. And then Linda LaPlante.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if that's how you say her name, but yeah. So that's a one there. And Onarahi, top author is James Patterson.
Oh, yep.
Yep. And then David Baldacci, Lee Child, Michael Connolly, and then Danielle Steele. And there is one branch on wheels we haven't mentioned just yet.
We have the mobile library. Do
Yeah.
they have different reading faves?
Yeah, actually. Same and also different. So top author, 3 guesses.
James Patterson.
Absolutely correct. And then we've got Anna Jacobs, who's moved up again, and Danielle Steele, Christine Feehan.
Oh, yeah.
Feehan?
Romance
Feehan?
author.
Yep.
Yep.
And Nora Roberts. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That sounds quite like a romantic
Yeah.
demographic on the mobile bus.
Was it the love bus?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, and with the mobile library, it goes like on its own sort of town route and then a rural route.
Yeah. Our mobile librarians are out almost every day on road trips, little road trips around. So all of the schedules for the mobile bus are on our website. So if you want to know, say, when it will be next in Waipu, then you can look up, just search maybe the location that you're looking for, and then the mobile bus will be the top hit.
Yeah, we have an interactive map that tells you can take a look and see a mobile library stop near you, and what days that would be. You can also call us or check out our website and see where we're at on the day.
Cool. And as for our branch libraries, they're sort of like mini versions of our main library. So you got your books, you got your public Wi-Fi, you've got your Wi-Fi, couple of computers at each branch.
3 computers to use.
Printing services, except for currently Te Kamo is off the printing services at the moment. Temporarily, we hope. We'll watch the space, we'll let you know. There's also newspapers, like physical newspapers and newspaper computers and catalogue computers. They're the same thing at the branches. Tikipunga has a fun time on Tuesdays during school term at 10 a.m. Tikipunga and Onarahi also have JPs, so you can search up JP times for them and for Central Library and the council building Tiwitahi on our website as well. We've got all that information on our website, or you can call us. They also have like books, magazines, audiobooks,
DVDs, puzzles.
And you can pick up your holds there. So if that's more convenient for you to place a hold and pick it up from close by in Te Kamo or wherever, you can do that. And it also an after hours return. So if that's also more convenient for you, you can
just drive by, pop them through, and carry on with your day. So it's just Central Library, miniaturized in different places. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also awesome, friendly staff out there.
yeah,
Shout
absolutely.
out to those guys.
Yeah, our branch librarians. Whoop whoop.
Okay. Pretty cool. So we might just throw it to another song. I'm going to throw it all the way back to the 90s with this one. And
Nice.
here's you too.
You're listening to The Shelf, a radio show for Whangarei District Libraries on Beagle Radio 88.1 FM. That song was Ultraviolet, Light My Way by U2.
And what a song that was.
Yes. Karlie was bobbing her head over here next to me like, yeah.
Yeah. Got the headphones on in the studio.
Yep. Yeah,
Cool.
Great time.
We might just run through some upcoming events at the library. There's always some cool stuff happening. I'll start off by saying that we have fun times next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday next week, but then we have a little hiatus because we've got school holiday programs, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But fun times is a preschool, free sessions, everything's free at the library. And so children can come and we'll do songs, dance, story time, cool stuff like that. And next week for Easter, we might have a little fun craft up our sleeve for you guys.
Can I join?
Yeah,
join?
definitely.
Yeah,
More the
cool.
merrier. So much fun crafting with the kids. Doing a little boogie.
Yeah.
Cool. So that's at 10 a.m. Tuesdays at Tikipunga Library, Wednesday, Thursdays at Whangarei Central Library. So next week, and then after 2 weeks, we'll be back into it during school term.
Yeah, and in those 2 weeks, don't worry, we have the school holiday program. So we've got the children's one with Mrs. Kite, and also then the Teens Breakfast Club. So that's after the Easter holiday weekend. So that would be let me just bring up my 7, 8, 9 of April. Is the school holiday program. So the children's one is from 10 till 11 in the children's area of the Central Library, and the teens breakfast one also starts at 10 but goes till 12. So that's the 7, 8, 9 of April, and then the same Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday on the week after that. Yep, and so I know that Mrs. Kite has got some cool exploration and spices and things like crafts around this to a cool book, which name escapes me right at this moment, but you'll have to come and join to see what that's all about. And with the teens, we will be making crafting chaos. We'll be doing painting, watercolors, oil pastels, miniaturariums, and book nooks backed by popular demand. So yeah, join us at the school holidays.
That is so exciting. It's such a cool opportunity for kids and tweens and teens to be creative, to hang out with other kids around their age, but without like pressure to be like,
there's a big thing.
You can be shy and join in, kind of.
Yeah.
Or you can
There's
be
this.
outgoing. Both of them.
Yeah,
Everyone's
both of them.
welcome.
There's enough space for all. No pressure, no anything. Just come and let your creative side out.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Coming up also in early April, we have drop-in tech help. So this is our free drop-in sessions for people that want help with basic tech use. So we could help you with maybe using your smartphone, using emails, accessing ebooks and
On
online magazines and
smartphones,
stuff.
tablets and laptops.
Yep. We're also joined by the CAB, the Citizens Advice Bureau of Whangarei, who are also volunteer coaches for this, and they're absolutely amazing. We can ask them or your library staff about scams, searching the internet, all that kind of stuff. So bring your questions, bring your devices, and join in. So that's on the 7th, Tuesday the 7th. It's always the first Tuesday of the month from 9:30 a.m. till 12 p.m.
Yeah. And also on the 7th of April is, and going every first Tuesday of the month after that, is the Whangarei Library 3:30 Flash Writers Group. So if you're interested in writing, sharing, or generally having fun with flash and micro fiction, that is the place to be. They meet on the first Tuesday of each month, and it consists of, writing exercises, readings, or having other authors critique or talk about your work. And it is aimed for adults, but the entry is free, so you can join them at the Whangarei Central Library.
Awesome. And the other thing that's coming up on that same day, it's going
It's
to be
a very busy day.
is the afternoon book club. So this is with your fiction collection librarian Meredith. So this is an afternoon book club from 1 p.m. till 3 p.m. on Tuesday, 7th of April. So this is a great way to meet people, expand your reading taste, and learn more about what we have to offer at your library. The afternoon book club meets on the first Monday of each month, except when Monday is a public holiday. Then the book club meets the following Tuesday, which seems to be the case this time. So, because it's a public Easter weekend
yes,
there,
of
so
course.
it'll be a little bit delayed. Tea, coffee, and nibbles are provided. And so, if you are interested in taking part in the book club, you email the library. The email is on our website. There's a book club page. Or you can visit us at one of our branches and leave your name and contact details, and we'll pass that along, and you're
Yeah.
free to join in.
Ooh, very cool. Every day could be book club day, but that sounds extra special.
That is extra special. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. It's been a really cool episode. Until next time, we'll see you at the library. Ka kite.